pleasure to welcome the founder of
Talentology.
Trevor Churchley. Talk about the gig economy. So someone who doesn't understand gig economy.
Can I also, maybe I should start with telling you what I'm not.
Okay. Not a recruiter.
In Sydney, of evenings, I charge people $50 each. In fact, I think all the $50 that I charge may have even built my website for the first time, so that was cool.
Let's jump straight into, just for the sake of our listeners, understanding what is talentology. Hello everyone, welcome back to the APS podcast. My name is Anupam Singh and I'll be your host today. Today we bring another fantastic episode for you. What are we going to cover? Let's talk about it. So we normally talk about recruitment in the industry, and everyone has had some form of experience with the recruitment agencies and industry in particular. But everyone's experience, whenever you speak to other people, is quite subjective. And some had some really good experiences, others had some really bad experiences. The industry in general has had a bit of a lukewarm feeling towards it overall. Having said that, there are some people in the industry who are trying to change the way the industry works and operates. And I'm delighted to say that today's guest is actually one of those trailblazing individuals who is trying to bring some new thought processes within the industry, changing the way the industry actually looks at itself, operates, and treats its candidates. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's my greatest delight and pleasure to welcome the founder of Talentology, Trevor Churchley. All right, thanks, Trevor. Thank you so much for joining. Great to have you here.
Most welcome. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's dive in then. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, your journey into the world of IT recruitment.
Wow. It goes back a long way. I started in IT recruitment in a different millennium. 1997, I had just come back from London, living in London for 4 years. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I'd had a little bit of IT, I'd had a marketing background, and a recruiter said to me one day, "Hey, have you ever thought about becoming a recruiter?" And I went, I don't want to be a recruiter. That'd be the worst thing ever. And 3 interviews later and a psych test, I became a recruiter. So it all started way back with a company called DMA, David Martin and Associates, who no longer are with us. And then I was there for a year, went to Paxis for 12 years, went to Ross Human Directions, Chandler McLeod, on to Manpower Express, to a company called Talent Crew, and here I am today. 27 years in the industry, certainly learned a lot about myself, about people, and about how to treat people. And I think that's probably the big thing for me, is that what recruitment taught me was, and IT professional services, is be good to people. In fact, a little lesson, a guy called Gavin Callahan was one of my first ever clients. He was a client of mine from Telstra. I remember this day very clearly. He was at the Pacific Power building in the CBD in Sydney, and he said to me, "Trevor, come over here. I'm going to teach you a lesson today." He says, "What you need to remember is that you need to treat everyone like they're your next customer." And it's always stuck with me. So, I think it's that level of respect, and respect people, whoever they may be, okay, at whatever level. It's the same level of respect that goes for everybody.
Great advice, Trevor. Great advice. Thank you. Now, you've had a career spanning, 25 years in IT recruitment, and you've worked with some of the biggest names in the industry. So what were some of the most eye-opening lessons that you've learned during those years? And were there any moments that made you think or rethink how the industry operates?
Lessons learned. Apart from treating everyone with respect, I think one of the big lessons that I think I learned through my career is that people in the recruitment industry, I think, when you talk about recruiters and how people are treated, sometimes we're all thinking about how we can be successful. But I think the one thing with recruitment is because it's a people-based industry, you've really got to make sure that you're looking after each and everyone's needs. And everyone's a little bit different. But one thing they have in common is that if they come into the job market, it's a place that they feel very uneasy. All right. Because remember, you're not here, people aren't job seeking all the time. So they're normally thrust into the job market, most likely not of their own doing. So redundancy or contract job loss. And it's happened quite quickly. They enter the market, they enter a state of unemployment. And especially at the moment where the market is down, people enter a state of anxiety, different levels of anxiety. They don't know how the market works. It's very confusing. And I think for me, one of the lessons that I learned is to be empathetic, and to really understand that people, they're looking for direction. They're looking for some form of surety and security, and then sometimes need to be guided. So therefore, empathy and patience, I think, are probably two of the biggest things that I've learned through my career. But also never to assume, never to assume a situation. You can walk into something assuming one thing and end up being in another. And I think if you take a certain mindset and a certain stance on something, it sometimes can affect your level of flexibility. All right, so your ability to be flexible. So I think for me, I take everything as it comes. I'm often thrust into situations that I've had like a minute or 2 minutes warning, or even not even that. And again, it's about being calm and approaching everything with merit.
So dealing with the unexpected with calmness. That's actually a quality I'm sure a lot of people would be able to resonate, provided they are mature enough. It's subjective.
Yeah. Look, I
Having
think
said that, so you founded Talentology in what, 2017?
yes. Well, here's the funny thing. I started in 2017, but as a side hustle to do job search coaching. I used to get a lot of people come to me and say, "Oh, can you have a look at my resume? Can you give me some advice on LinkedIn? Can you give me advice on the job market?" Which I was always happy to do, okay, because it's sort of part of what you do as a industry expert. But I kind of looked at it as if, would this work as a side hustle, and could I do something with it? Because I'm very passionate about helping people. So back in 2017, I basically formed the company. The logo was actually designed by my son, who for his HSC assignment. So that was pretty cool. So it was very
Right.
much homegrown. I started doing job seeker workshops in Sydney of evenings. I'd charge people $50 each, and I would pretty much spend that money on drinks and refreshments. And we'd sit there for 2 hours, and I'd effectively provide my knowledge and experience of the job market to people who are out of work. And I found it really gratifying that I could make that level of connection to somebody, and for them to be able to get something out of it. So that was really cool. And in fact, I think all the $50 that I charged may have even built my website for the first time. So that was cool. And then I put it down for a while. I was working at a business in Sydney, professional services business, which I helped set up for them. And so I let it go for a bit. And I reestablished it in July 2022. After, unfortunately, I had a bit of a work stress-related mental breakdown, which was pretty difficult to deal with. And it got to the point where I had to make a decision on whether I would go back to a corporate, based on, that what I'd been through was really, really tough. Or do I start my own business? So my wife, I remember very clearly, she came downstairs one day and said, "You know what? Maybe you should start your own business." Many people have said it to me over the years, but I may have daydreamed about it, but really never didn't take any action to establish my own business. And so here it was. So my wife and I made the decision to do it, and on the 1st of July 2022, here I was standing right here in this very spot, running my own business. Oh my God, it was like drinking through a fire hose. But you know what? 2.5 years on, actually, I'll tell you what, I wish I'd have done this earlier. Seriously, being your own boss, and not have to worry about the corporate politics and the game playing and all the dramas that come with working for a corporate. It's so refreshing.
So
Yes, there's no safety net. Yes, there's no base salary, but oh my God, talk about a trade the base salary for freedom has just been incredible.
So you've had a very good career as a recruiter or in the recruitment industry for many years, right?
Mm.
I mean, almost quarter of a century, 25
Yeah.
years. So what was your tipping point? Like, why? When did you think that enough's enough? I want to do things differently.
Well, it's funny. It goes back quite a long way. It predates the Talentology thing. So a couple of moments happened in my career. One of them was Telstra was always one of my big clients. In fact, many people even branded me as Telstra only. All you can do is Telstra. You're a one-trick pony, which was, I suppose, in one way gratifying, and another way I felt a bit insulted by that because it was kind of saying that that's all you can do. But Telstra and I have had a great relationship over the years. I don't do too much with them now, proving that I'm not a one-trick pony. Thank you very much. But there was a time where Telstra had signed an agreement to outsource Westpac's network and security services. And at the time, Telstra didn't have enough network and security architects and engineers to be able to build those teams. And I had a very close relationship with Telstra, and the executive directors came to me and said, "Can you help us out with this?" And it started as a project for 12 engineers to start pretty much in a week's time for 8 weeks. So it was a very small startup, but over time, I'd won the trust of Telstra to be able to increase the size of that team and the longevity to the point where we peaked at 83 engineers and architects, which was a pretty incredible team. But rather than just putting a body shopper and putting people on site, I really, I suppose it really captured my imagination of what is possible when it comes to building teams, outsourced teams. So I was always on site at 400 George Street in the city in Sydney, always buying coffees. People actually even now still think that I used to work for Telstra. I was there so often. But my place was to be with the team. Okay, my place was to be with the people because if I'm going to support the people, there's no point sitting in another corporate office. So every time Telstra would come up with a problem, a hurdle, I would help solve the problem. If it was a culture issue, if it was a morale problem, if it was a whatever issue, we would then start to change what we would do to support the workforce and reduce its attrition or increase its morale. We came up with reward and recognition events. We came up with 360 reviews, and these are all contractors; they weren't our permanent team. So we came up with a lot of different things to be able to build a team. And what it proved to me, Anupam, was that the power of a team, is actually pretty cool. What if recruiters, and at the time I was working for Phoenix Cell in professional services, what if we could provide a team rather than a person? And it really did capture my imagination. So that mindset led me towards identifying that recruiters ultimately are sales and marketing people. All right, rarely are they experts in their domain. Okay, and I think that's a misnomer that I think a lot of people make. They think recruiters are experts in project management or development, but they're not really. Okay, that's not a blight on recruiters. That's just the way it is. Okay, so what I recognized was that if I'm a sales and marketing person, which I am, okay, just so happens that I'm in the recruitment or professional services industry for technology. But what if I was to use my superpower to be a sales and marketer and then partner with other organizations, IT SMEs, who could effectively be our delivery arm, solutions and delivery? Okay, let's separate the two. Let's work together and collaborate to be able to create great outcomes, great solutions, as opposed to, and there are some recruiters that do this, they talk a good game with professional services, but the reality is that all they're doing is body shopping contractors onto a site. So I started developing this concept, and I went to a company which I won't name at this point in time, but I went to an organization where the whole idea was to set up a professional services unit, and I brought this idea with me and said, "How about we do this?" And it captured their imagination to the point where this business really it took their imagination and they supported it to the point where we built a $15 million business inside 2 years over COVID. So it was pretty amazing. We had a very small team doing it, but we had partners who really believed in collaboration, and we developed and delivered some amazing opportunities. So I think that in itself was the thought process that led me to where I am today. So with Talentology, I'm a fractional sales and marketing business when it comes down to it. But what I focus on is IT SMEs, IT contractors, IT job seekers. It's the same approach for all three cohorts. It's effectively building sales and marketing capability to be able to build pipelines of work or opportunities or projects for those three cohorts. So, yeah, what I've been able to do, I suppose, is to craft something that I absolutely and utterly love and to do it in a self-employment form. So how lucky am I? I'm doing what I love.
We're all lucky to have you as well. I mean, I'm part of the community as well, so I think it's great to be a part of the community with the thought process that you have actually built it upon and the foundations that you built it upon. It's just amazing. So look, let's just jump straight into, like, just for the sake of our listeners, understanding what is talentology, what's the core function that talentology performs. I'm sure they would have gathered bits and pieces from your previous narratives, but let's get it a bit more structured in the sense that tell us what talentology is and what do you guys do.
Can I also, maybe I should start with telling you what I'm not.
Okay, you're not a
Let's start on
recruiter.
the other
That's
side.
enough.
Talentology is not a recruitment company. So this is something that confuses people when they know who I am, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not a recruiter, and I say this because I've purposely chosen to not be a recruiter. When I got to the point where I had to start a business, I truly believe that the world did not need another recruitment company. Okay, we might get into and unpack that a little later. So I decided to focus on and if you think of the recruitment and IT professional services marketplace as customers or corporates, recruiters and IT professional service firms, and the people. Okay, what the industry how it works is that the middlemen, or middle people, let's say, being the recruiters and the IT professional services companies who sit between the talent and the corporates, they focus on the corporates. Okay,
Mhm.
they're the paying customers. So therefore, the middle people are always accountable to the corporates. Therefore, what does it mean for the supply? What does it mean for the talent, the people that supply those services through? Ultimately, they are treated based on market conditions. Okay, those people are treated as kings and queens when there's a shortage of talent, and they are treated appallingly when there's a surplus of talent, as we are at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, irrespective of it, is the people really matter? Because here's the funny thing, right? Is that these people on this side of the marketplace, when they're out of work, are job seekers. And unfortunately, the clients and the middle people generally a little bit tone deaf to the needs of this cohort, especially in market times like at the moment. But what they don't realise is that they, middle people and corporates, will become job seekers at some point in the future. So why treat job seekers with disrespect and tone deafness when in actual fact they may need the service themselves? It's the ironic twist in this situation, right? So getting to the point of talentology, what I do is I serve the people. If you look at my website, it talks about by the IT professionals for the IT professionals. And the whole idea of it is that I'm a fractional sales and marketing manager, which means that I don't work for anyone full time. I can be engaged on a part time, retained basis, or even work purely at risk, working with the people representing their needs. So it's kind of like being, if we're talking about individuals like contractors or job seekers, it's like being your personal talent agent, just like a movie star or a sports star would have. I look after them, I look after their needs, I look after their interests, I work for them. Now they pay me, right? Because ultimately I'm an agent, I'm a coach, I'm a leader. But what I do, my job is to provide them with the advantage and ultimately advice on working with recruiters and working with employers and trying to cut through all that non-transparent, pardon my French, bullshit when it comes to doing the runaround on candidates who don't understand the process. And that really frustrates them. So I'm kind of like the insider, providing that level of knowledge and expertise. When it comes to IT SMEs, okay, like yourself, Anna Pam, small businesses are the lifeblood of Australian industry. Okay, if you want innovation, it's going to start at the grassroots level. Okay, any business, any major successful Australian business, like for example Atlassian, started at the grassroots. Okay, now the thing is, though, is that you can have the most magnificent idea and the most magnificent services, but the problem that you have is that if you can't sell this idea, then unfortunately no one's going to know about it. Okay. However, if you're the founder of that business, you're most likely an expert in your domain, but you may not be great at sales and marketing, and therefore you've got to make a decision. Do you try and do it yourself and not very well, and also have to overcome that I just don't want to do this stuff because I'm not a salesperson, which is what I hear all the time? Or what else can I do? I can go to a B2B marketing company, and my experience with working with B2B marketing companies with their AI solutions is generally there's a lot of snake oil out there. I'm not suggesting that everyone is bad, but it's not great. It's a very hands-off approach with lots of guarantees with lack of delivery. Or what else is there? Take a chance, roll the dice. So I found there was a bit of a hole in the market. So for me, being a fractional sales and marketing company, right, providing those services to now more than 25 small ITSME partners is magnificent. I get to work with really smart people. I get to work with really passionate people. I get to work with people that respect me for what I do, and I have a massive respect for what they do. But I think the acknowledgement is that we're using our superpowers to collaborate to be able to win business off the big guys. I won't mention any brand names, but let's just say I think we all know who they may be. The global outsourcers, the large outsourcers, they've got lots of business. They don't need it, okay? But what we can do as both singular, me working with a business like yours, Adapam, or collaborating with other businesses as we've been doing recently, we can form great solutions. We can be flexible, we can be agile, we can be cost effective, and we can be competitive. I think one of the things that I'm always beating the drum on, though, with industry, with corporates, is why not take a chance on the smaller guys? Okay, sure, it's easy to, to think about if I engage an Accenture, for example, let's engage Accenture because if something goes wrong, we can sue them. Anyone that walks into a project or business opportunity thinking about how they may be suing their partner before they even start, one would think that that's probably not a great way to start.
Isn't that a general psychology? Come to think about it, like people
Yeah.
are getting more and more risk averse these days, especially organizations. And
Well,
they use that as an excuse often, when you approach them as a small business.
yeah, I totally agree with that. I think, look, there are very, very smart people in this world who make very, very risk-centric decisions. Um, just because there's a big brand on the door doesn't mean they do it any better. And what I see is when these large brands come out and pitch their work and they say, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to outsource this because we've got these great teams. Once they win, the very next moment, there's a whole bunch of jobs on Seek through agencies trying to find all these people to hire as contractors that will now be our team. Now, I don't know about you, but surely that's a bit of smoke and mirrors, right? The fact that you're supposed to have the team just sitting around waiting for the work to come up, which never happens, right? And then now all of a sudden you're flush with this big team of people that are now working together for the first time who are not really a team yet, all right? Which leads to delays and problems and escalations and a whole bunch of other stuff. Sure, they've got to do things at scale, and at the end of the day, that's their business model and they're most welcome to it. But when you're working with IT SMEs, the people are generally part of their network. Okay, so all of our IT SME partners have been around for 10, 20, 30 years. They know good people. They're always got good people in their orbits. They can bring those people out of orbit. And invariably, people love working for great leaders, not necessarily for great brands. Okay, working for great leaders means that they're supported and they're elevated, and working together in a great team is a great way to be able to be productive and enjoy your work, rather than being hammered by a big corporate. Anyway, that's just my personal philosophy to this. But, my advice to large corporates is, what, maybe take a second look at ITSMEs. Maybe take a second look at Australian small business. They're the ones that do pay tax in Australia. They're the ones that do contribute to community and society. And you know what? They're mums and dads and colleagues and friends who deserve a go. So, and I'm very staunchly passionate about that.
And that's quite commendable because I don't know what about others, but I personally found that as an IT SME, it's not easy. I'm not going to lie, it's not easy. But you need to be disciplined, and you need someone to actually keep you motivated and disciplined. And I believe you have done that for me.
Oh, thank you.
You brought in the discipline into me. You kind of reignited the discipline into me. So I started doing things which I wasn't doing before. People often think getting out of the comfort zone is quite annoying. Yes, it is initially, but once you get out of it, you just actually, it becomes fun. It's more enjoyable.
Well, look, I'm sure there are lots of career coaches and management coaches will say this, but you don't grow if you don't get out of your comfort zone. Okay, and yeah, getting out of your comfort zone is difficult because it's laden with change and risk. But you know what? My philosophy on this again is, if you want to come out of your comfort zone, don't take a massive leap. Take a small step. Okay, just take a small step. Just take a small step at a time. Set your goals incrementally. Sure, you've got a major objective to reach. Okay, I want to do X, Y, Z inside, whatever the time frame. But let's start every journey with a small step first. Okay, so make that first call. If you're feeling really anxious about making your first cold call, your first prospecting call, then don't promise to do 100. Promise to do one. Find the easiest way to be successful, which is what we do right in our program. We find how to be successful, how to be consistently successful, okay, and to make it as easy as we can to start creeping out of the comfort zone. And what I've found, especially with you, because your progress has been amazing, right? You're doing things now that you probably would never have done. And yes, we talk, we coach, but whilst I can give you ideas and I can show you how it's done, it really still comes down to you and your courage. So demonstrating that level of courage, coming out of the comfort zone, that allows you to continue to come out of the comfort zone. All right. My whole attitude towards this is, you should be able to, at the end of the program, you should be able to do this yourself. Okay. Now, hopefully, we'll still be working together and obviously and continue our relationship. But you can be and should be as good as me. Okay. There's nothing that's stopping you, because all it is a process, and all you need is courage to be able to follow the process. Okay.
And that's where I think the community-centric approach comes into picture, and I would love to talk to you about the community that you've created.
Hmm.
The approach they have taken about the community-centric approach.
Yep.
Can you please elaborate a bit more and explain us how does it actually work, and how does it look like in action?
Great question. The community is something that I'm very passionate about. And it really comes down to, I suppose, first and foremost, the framework. So the framework is, and I don't want this to sound like it's all about me, but it kind of is to a point. What I've done is, through my career of 27 odd years, I've met lots of amazing people. Okay. And people from my background have started their own businesses, or they are IT contractors, or even job seekers. All right. Now, for me, what's really important about Talentology is working with people I enjoy working with. Okay, I think, like all of us, we've worked in corporates with people that we've been sort of, paired together with, and some people you get along with and some people you don't. In sales, it's the same thing. And, let's call recruitment sales for a moment. I've worked with some amazing people, and I've worked with some equally unimpressive people. Okay. But now you don't get that choice a lot of the time, right? Who you get to work with. Now I do. Okay, so everyone in this Talentology ITSME community are people that I know, I can tell stories about. You can trace my relationships back quite a number of years, which is great. So the only way you get into the community is either I know you, or you've been referred by someone that I know, all right? Which then allows me to create a level of consistency across culture and philosophy. And I think that's really important first. Then, okay, so yes, I am the central part. I like to call myself, the cat herder. All right, that's okay. It's a positive term. Bringing everyone together. So I meet regularly with all of our partners. I have a program that we work through together. I'm very hands-on in my approach. But then after we start working singularly, what I then start to do is bring people together based on the opportunities that we are generating together. Okay, so this is not just about me being a rainmaker. All right. Yes, I've got a great network, and yes, it does bring business to the table. But what I do is I want to elevate the people that I work with, the ITSME leaders who have their own amazing networks. And in many cases, they don't think about leveraging their current network, which are amazing relationships that go all the way back, right? What they'll tend to do a lot of the time is they'll pay for Google AdWords and sponsored posts on LinkedIn and Facebook and Insta and TikTok, if you're that way inclined as well, right? They'll spend a lot of money ignoring the fact that they don't need to build an audience because they've already got one, okay? So by being able to work with these leaders, to collaborate with these leaders, what I then do is I then get all of their connections and build a master database, which effectively at the moment is sitting at about 52,000 connections. So when, as a community, we need to build more business and all of a sudden we want to get into XYZ customer, we can then work across all of our partners to understand who's got the best relationships and to be able to have instant conversations, as opposed to having to do cold calls, cold reach outs, which with all due respect at the moment, especially on LinkedIn and through email, I think everyone's getting a little bit tired of that. So what we can do is we can work within our own networks to make sure that we can develop awesome opportunities for ourselves. Okay, so the community, and in fact, it's very active. Okay, now everyone's a bit different. Okay, there are some extroverts, some introverts, and that's okay. But my job is to bring them to the table and keep them talking and collaborating. And of course, with you, Anupam, we've been working quite recently with Michael Kebb of the Digital BA and his RecOps tool. And Michael's been working with a number of different partners to be able to take that tool to market, which is an exceptional tool. And I think what I love about this, though, is the energy that it creates. Okay, you and Michael coming together. We met up in Melbourne last week. It was amazing to see that level of connection, the energy, the drive, and the excitement. And I think, and if I was to reflect on one particular moment, Pam, it has something to do with you, is when we were having dinner last Thursday night in Melbourne. You said to me, Trevor, I've never been so excited about business. And that little comment meant a huge amount to me, because if I've been able to inspire you to get to that moment, then that means that what I'm doing is working. Okay, and it's great validation to hear that type of feedback.
Thank you. I mean, it's mutual. Obviously, I understand. I don't have words to explain it. I said what I said because it was true.
Yeah.
So look, we are almost at half an hour of the schedule. So
We're having fun, hey?
Yeah. So let's jump to the next question that I have. It's more about the gig economy. So someone who doesn't understand gig economy, what does it mean, and what does the future look like?
Oh my God, I love the gig economy. It's the gig economy, I suppose, is I'll use a number of words right here. The fractionalization of work. Okay, so it's probably best to describe where we've come from to be able to identify where we're headed. Okay, so if we go back a long time ago, work was permanent. You had a job for life. If our parents' era, they were told by their parents, go to school, get good grades, work hard, go to university, get a degree, get a job, work 50 years, and then enjoy your life. That's it. Well, then you probably drop dead 6 years later of a heart attack. Touch wood, we don't do that. Okay, so that was the baby boomers, right? So Gen X, all of a sudden, we take hold of that and we go, oh, okay, well, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I'm also seeing something a little bit different, because all of a sudden you started to see, the stock market come up. You started to see organizations under pressure for profits, for restructuring. Technology is driving massive change amongst us, both in our personal lives and business lives. And now all of a sudden, 20, 30 years ago, if you were made redundant, you were deadwood. There was a real stigma attached to it. And now fast forward to 2024, being made redundant is like a badge of honor. If you haven't been made redundant 5 times already, then you're behind the 8 ball. It's pretty amazing. So work has become very transient, very temporary. Okay. And I do take issue with the term permanent employee, because it's not. It's far from permanent. Okay. Permanent means forever, as far as I'm aware, but this is not forever. In fact, what I've heard, the research that I have access to, is that the average tenure of anyone is about 17 months in a job. Okay, and that's probably reducing at the moment, right? People are getting made redundant without warning, which means that all of a sudden our lives have become a little more unstable, our professional lives, right? So what it's leading to is the fractionalization, because we're also talking about hybrid working, remote working, and there's obviously a massive battle fighting there at the moment. We've also, prior to COVID, there was a lot of talk about the 40-hour week and bringing it into question. Is it relevant now? Should we be working a 4-day week? Now, if we start working a 4-day week and we're changing the general structure of how we go to work, in regard to hybrid and remote working, then all of a sudden everything's up in the air. So what I think has really been shaping over the last 10 years or more is work-life balance and the importance of it. Okay, we're under pressure a huge amount. Everyone, 20, 30 years ago, mum and dad didn't both have to work. Normally it was dad working and mum at home. Now everybody's working longer hours, more pressure to pay those expensive mortgages in Sydney, Melbourne, other Australian capitals. Life is really tough. But at the same time, there's pushback on, well, is there ways of me being able to get a better work-life balance? And so now the fractionalization of work has now started to come through. So the gig economy is ultimately how you can, well, I suppose the word gig really refers to music industry, but how can I have a gig that's flexible? How can I be more flexible with my working life? Contracting is a really cool thing to do, right? And a lot of people choose to be independent contractors. But the problem is that if you're an independent contractor and you're there for 12 months and you're not satisfying the ATO rules around, being a legitimate business, and you can obviously then get stung for tax and have other penalties against you. So therefore, it's putting more and more pressure on people to go, well, I can't be with you for 12 months, but I want to be a contractor, so I need to keep moving around. So sometimes gig could be I have to move around a lot. It could be that I have to have two jobs at the same time. It could even lead to being I want to run my own business and I want to be able to work for multiple customers doing multiple things on my terms. So the gig economy is not necessarily one thing. It's a number of different things that are all sort of rolling together. We've had platforms like Fiverr and freelancer.com, which proliferated probably before COVID. And now, those platforms, I think, have had their own struggles in regards to their relevance. And there are now a number of platforms that are in the marketplace that promise a huge amount but don't deliver lots. And so I think it's a very confused market. But ultimately, I suppose when we start talking about the gig economy and you look at Talentology, this is a gig economy business. I work with multiple different businesses, multiple different partners, multiple different people doing multiple different roles. Okay. My business is generally a fractional sales and marketing business, but I could be working with 25, 30 different clients at the same time. So you could really describe me as a gig economy business, which in essence is delightful. Maybe another way of describing is being master of your own destiny, being your own boss and being master of your own destiny. But I think it really means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, which is why it's confusing. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it can be self-defining.
Interesting. We are short on time, but I'm sure I would love to have you back on the podcast and we can deep dive into some other topics as another day. But in parting, I just want two more questions from you, please. One, in what would you give like one advice to the recruitment industry if you have to? Keywords are transparency and respect.
Oh, here it comes. Okay. So what is my advice to the recruitment industry?
Yes.
Wow. If I had to slim it down to one piece of advice, which is really hard because I've got lots of advice. Okay. Look, my advice to the recruitment industry is to pay attention. Okay. Pay attention. It's very, very easy to get caught up in your own needs for success. Okay. And it's very, very easy to get a little bit lost in regard to what the priority is. The priority is the people. Okay. The priority is the people. And when I say the people, I'm talking about both sides of their marketplace. Yes, they're clients which they're currently accountable to, but they need to spend more time on this side of the fence as well with the people, with the job seekers, with the IT SME leaders, with the IT contractors. Because invariably, and the way that the industry is designed is not ideal. Okay, it's very competitive, especially in technology. It's highly competitive, very contingent. Recruiters are generally successful if they're lucky 25% of the time, and they're cheering if they're 25% successful, which means that they are unsuccessful 75% of the time. Which means, Anupam, that let's say 75% of the candidates that they're in contact with are failing, not least of which are the ones that are applying and never hearing back. Okay. Now, this is a big problem. Okay. And it will become a bigger problem as this industry keeps churning like a transaction. Okay. It loses, I think, sight of the fact that this is a human-based business. You're not dealing with widgets, right? You're working with humans who need recruitment to be able to have a life, to feed their kids, to pay their mortgage. And I think the industry loses sight of that. And as I am unfortunately have a bit of a unfortunate reputation of being a bit of a recruiter basher. It's not that I'm bashing recruiters. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to gain attention, okay, on behalf of the people. Because here's the thing, right? Accountability lives on the client side, not on the candidate side. But the reality is this: what we're going to see over the next year or two is that many candidates have been keeping notes of the recruiters that help them and the people that help them, and also those that don't, those that get perennial ghosters. And those people are being locked in the memory bank. And here's what's going to happen. And it might be a time in 2025 where this particular candidate let's call him Joe Bloggs, gets a role in an organization as a senior hiring manager or senior buyer. And all of a sudden, the agency or one of the agencies has been ghosting them and treating them like absolute crap, knocks on the door and says, "G'day, how are you? Remember me? I want to come and pick up some work. I want to get some jobs. I want to tell you how amazing I am." And it'll be at that point in time where accountability bites, because that buyer is going to look at that agency and go, "No, not going to happen." Okay, now I've been told this. I get told this all the time by senior people telling me that they are going to remember. So that in itself is going to reshape how recruiters work to a point. It won't change the industry because there's no level of regulation, okay? And unfortunately, the industry bodies in recruitment are turning a blind eye, okay? The industry awards are all about rewarding recruiters. I even see some industry awards, I won't name them, you'll know who they are, who will award an agency for their candidate care, but the judging panel has no candidates on it. None of them are job seekers, never have been, right? How the hell do they know how a candidate should feel when they've never been there? So it gets me fired up, as you can see. I'm pretty passionate about this, all right? But, a lot of people say, why do you take this stance? It's because candidates can't, okay? If a job seeker was to speak like I'm speaking now, they get blacklisted, just as I am treated, let's say, or called a recruitment basher and, maligned. Fine. I don't mind, because at the end of the day, I don't rely on the recruitment industry. But if I can change it in a little, just a tiny little way, then all this would be worth it, okay? And that is what I'm trying to do. Will I be able to change the entire industry? Absolutely not. Not at all. But if we can make a small difference, just like any form of change, it will be a big difference.
Absolutely, Trevor. All right, my last question.
Yep.
What kind of people can reach out to you and how?
Oh, everybody. Everybody can reach out to me. Look, for me, Talentology is a business that is approachable. Talentology is a business that's trying to make a difference when it comes to the world of people and technology. Okay, so it could be that you're an IT SME leader who needs help to build pipeline and wants to join a collaborative community of IT SME leaders who are good people, good, solid people that are great to hang out with. One. IT contractors that are looking for some form of positive representation and to help them to build continuous pipelines of work, because you just never know when you're going to lose your job or lose your contract, or you may actually want to become an IT SME. That's cool. The others are job seekers. So job seekers who really have been thrown into the market and really don't know up from down. Oops.
That's wrong. Sorry.
The job seekers there. Very
Sorry.
good. The job seekers are a little bit lost and they need some direction. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, I offered a paid coaching service, but we also run job seeker workshops every 2 weeks. We've been doing it for the last 6 months, just to help people, to give something back. I don't expect anything back for that time, but someone's got to help. All right. So I think there are probably 3 of the cohorts that can reach out, but also the corporates. Okay. The corporates who actually want to do things a bit differently, who are open to different ways of working, who want to support small business, but not quite sure how to engage small business. Well, that's something that we can as a community help with. So I think there are a number of cohorts, but the final one are recruiters. Yep, I'm the recruitment basher. I get it. I've heard that before. But, I would always welcome a recruiter to come to me to ask, actually, how can we make a difference when it comes to the candidates, the job seekers? What can we do to make a difference, and how can we improve their engagement, and also how can we protect our brand? I'm always welcome to that. I don't expect to get many phone calls on that one, to be honest with you, but I'm always open to chat.
Brilliant, Trevor. Thank you so much. And for everyone's sake, I will have Trevor's email ID and website address in the description. So if you want to reach out to him, please do. He's available on LinkedIn, and please follow him so you can take part in his weekly job seeker webinar.
Fortnightly. It's not weekly.
Fortnightly, sorry, fortnightly. Fortnightly webinar.
Fortnightly, yes.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much, Trevor. Really appreciate your time. And I hope everyone had a good session and you had some good learnings from it. And looking forward to the next one sometime soon.
Thank you, Anna Pam. It's been lovely spending time with you today. Thank you.